Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Unquestionably Raw. It's September, which means we're kicking off our 2016-2017 NBA preview shows. We're going to take you all the way up until opening night, kind of previewing team by team. Tonight, we are previewing the Brooklyn Nets. Joining us is well-regarded contributor for Real GM, Today's Fast Break, and Celtics blog, Mr. Keith Smith. Also joining us is DJ Gonzo Star, and Matt will be with us shortly. So Keith, how you doing, man? I'm gonna jump to you.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Good, yeah, definitely. I'm gonna jump to you first. With Brooklyn, all of their changes, kind of this offseason, they've decided to go younger. They've also hired Kenny Atkinson, former Hawks assistant coach. Which I think is a great developmental coach, one of the best in the NBA in my opinion. And with their roster kind of being a little bit younger, a lot of guys are hungry and proving themselves. Can you kind of break down player by player what you see as far as roles go, and maybe a little bit of a depth chart prediction for us?
Yeah, for sure. So, I think the Nets' goal this year in the offseason was to not take on any bad contracts. They just kind of cleared themselves out of that after being in salary cap purgatory for a little while there. So they finally get out of that. They still are on the hook to Darren Williams for another 4 seasons for about $5.5 million a year as terms of their buyout. But beyond that, they got rid of all their other questionable contracts, and they traded away Thaddeus Young. And it was a goal to go, I think, a little bit younger, but bring in some vets, hopefully that they can keep them competitive, keep them in games, and then they can move on from there. So, big additions this year. Probably the biggest name to come in is Jeremy Lin. He's going to step right in. He'll be their starting point guard. He was very good for the Hornets last year in a backup role, playing behind Kemba Walker and then playing a lot of minutes with Kemba Walker. So in Brooklyn, he'll have the ball in his hands, the starting point guard role, and there's really no real competition. The backup point guard will be Grievous Vasquez. They're hoping he'll come back healthy, gives them a little bit of a different look, bigger guard at the point position. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them play some minutes together. And then they brought in a couple options at power forward, so Trevor Booker, Luis Scola, 2 veterans, bringing both of them in. They'll kind of tag team the power forward position. It seems when I talk to people around the league and around the Nets, about 50-50 split on who's going to actually start and who comes off the bench. So I think that we're just going to have to see how it plays out there. They brought in Anthony Bennett, former #1 overall draft pick. So kind of hoping to catch lightning in the bottle with him. Maybe he'll finally figure it out and put it all together. And then just bench additions, Randy Foye, kind of a combo guard to come off the bench for them. Hopefully he can come in. In the draft, they added Karis LeVert. He's unfortunately, he's been hurt. He's coming off of a foot injury and hasn't been able to play, didn't play in Summer League. So kind of similar to their first-rounder last year, one of their 2 first-rounders, Chris McCullough. They'll get him in the lineup, as the season goes along. I'm hoping to get a wing scoring out of him. And then they picked up in the second round Isaiah Whitehead, who's a guard that a lot of people like, comes out of Seton Hall. Really high scorer in college, can maybe play the point a little bit. We'll see. And those guys kind of all fit around Brook Lopez, their big name, big center, back to hold down the middle. And 2 young players that I know teams really excited about, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, playing on the wing. Played really good defense as a rookie, showed a lot of really good potential. There's a good chance he will see a lot of minutes for them coming off their bench. And then we will see with them Bojan Bogdanovic is coming off the Olympics, where he was excellent in the Olympics. He did really, really well, played great. And he actually kind of sneakily played well for the Nets down the stretch. So a lot of people miss that because I don't think, unless you're a Nets fan, you weren't watching the Nets towards the end of last year. Right. So I think, he played really, really well, and they're trying to give him more of a scoring load and see what he can do in the NBA to be a guy who can really carry things from the wing position.
Okay, okay. Gonzo, I know we talked about a guy and kind of in the pre-show. Why don't you touch on them for our touch on him for our listeners?
I like Sean Kilpatrick from Cincinnati. Me personally, I think that I always thought he was a really good scorer at Cincinnati. But I would like to ask you a question: do you think him working with Brook Lopez and Jeremy Lin, you think they could possibly make an 8 seed in the Eastern Conference?
I don't think they have a chance at getting into the playoffs. It just doesn't seem realistic. Their veterans would have to really play really really well for that to happen, and they'd have to get a lot of offense out of those guys to step up and go. So I just can't see them being that competitive. One guy I forgot to touch on that they added is Justin Hamilton. He's a big guy. He's kind of a backup power forward center type, and he is coming back to the NBA. He's kind of bounced around the end of some rosters, and he's coming back in from Spain. I believe Spain is where he played last year, and he was pretty good over there. So they gave him about $3 million for the next 2 seasons to come in and be a backup big for them. So I think he's going to be pretty solid for them. So we'll see, what it looks like with him on the floor. But that's I just wanted to make sure I touched on him. But as far as making the playoffs, it's a stretch. The Eastern Conference got so much better this year. A lot of those middle tier teams added a lot. So I think it's going to be really hard for Brooklyn to make up the difference.
I think the key, in my opinion, is going to be Kenny Atkinson defining roles as the season progresses, and I think he's going to do a great job of kind of developing those players like Rondae Hollis Jefferson, getting him a little bit more comfortable in offense because his defense is already, pretty much his strong point. Kilpatrick's offense is his strong point, so they'll develop his defense. You've got guys like Joe Harris, basically coming off an injury. He did play with the Cavaliers, was waived after being traded. I believe it was to Orlando, and then he was waived from there. But he's a shooter that could provide some offense throughout the year. You touched on Justin Hamilton, and he's basically a stretch power forward center, so he'll be able to kind of provide some shooting. And then Bogdanovich, of course, three-point shooter. So they have some nice young pieces there. I don't, to answer your question, Gonzo, in my opinion, I don't see them making the playoffs. I don't necessarily. I mean, we have to see how the season goes, but I don't see them as being the absolute worst team in the NBA, like a lot of bloggers and stuff that I've read are predicting. Because I really believe that highly in Kenny Atkinson and just what he can do as a coach, and so definitely curious to see how they do. What do you guys see? Basically, the three keys for Brooklyn that will either make or break their season overall. Keith, I'm going to go to you first.
Sure, I think it's for me, it's going to be the development of the young players. So Rondae Hollis Jefferson, Bogdanovich, McCullough, Levert, Whitehead. If they can start getting things out of those players, I think that'll be huge for them. That's I think more important than any results on the court. And you referenced that Kenny Atkinson's thought of as one of the best developmental coaches in the entire NBA. So it'd be curious to see if he is, if he's what he's able to do now that he's a head coach. And he's got a little bit more responsibility and can't focus, with as much one-on-one development and those kind of things. But I think it's a fantastic hire. And they've got Sean Marks there. They've got a really smart, put-together front office. So they're starting to look really, really solid on that side. So that's the big thing, is what can you get out of the young guys, and then can the vets be good enough that they can potentially flip them in trades and start to recoup some of the assets that they've lost. They have lost some of the, obviously all those first round picks to the Celtics. that they gave up in that big trade a few years ago that they're still paying to this coming year with swap rights and then next year. So I think that's the idea behind some of these contracts to, say Luis Scola 5.5 million this year. The Nets didn't need to pay him that much, but I think their deal is they can hopefully get something out of him, maybe turn around and flip him at the trade deadline, and get back some form of, later pick for that. Same thing with like a Randy Foy or a Grievous Vasquez, those kind of things. Just anything they can do to kind of start rebuilding that talent base, but also keep the cap sheet clean.
Okay. Okay. Gonzo, going to you, and Matt's joining us now. So, Matt, I'm going to catch you up. The question was, what are basically 3 keys for Brooklyn that will make or break their season? You don't have to come up with 3, but just to kind of give you thought while Gonzo's going. Gonzo, do you got any keys that you think will make or break their season?
I'm going to piggyback off what Keith said a little bit, the development of the young players, but also, most importantly, I think the health of Brook Lopez and the draft pick, Hollis Jefferson, his health, Brook Lopez's health. And I think this can make or break the season too as well. The coach defining players' roles on the team. You wanting to have everybody to do their job properly, and and having guys not to do too much. Everybody knowing what they should do and doing their job properly, and executing properly. I think those are the 3 for me.
Okay. Matt, you have anything you want to add?
Sure. I think everybody covered it with health, especially with Brook Lopez and Hollis Jefferson, because I think he missed most of the season last year. And but I think another key thing is going to be how's Jeremy Lin going to fit in? Because I think that could prove to be a good or bad signing. If you get Houston Rockets Jeremy Lin, then I don't know. But if you get the Jeremy Lin we saw last year, I think that will be huge for them. And then as Gonzo said, all the players having their roles defined. And I'm interested in how LeVert's going to do, because he's a really good basketball player, and I think he can provide a nice scoring punch for them at that shooting guard position, and he can take some pressure off Jeremy Lin handling the basketball if they need him to do that.
Yeah, I think basically the key for me is are they going to be able to defend first and foremost? Are they going to be able to bring it every night to remain competitive? And then on offense, outside of Jeremy Lin, basically driving to the rim or stopping and popping for a 3, and then Brook Lopez down low, where is that third scorer? Is it going to be Bogdanovich consistently, or is somebody else going to step up? So definitely curious to see where LeVert, of course, once he gets healthy, how he fits in the most. And I actually think that highly of Sean Kilpatrick, that he's going to take a step up and actually become. I think he averaged about 11 points a game last year. I think he can get consistent 14 points a night over the the course of the season as it moves on. Give me a bold prediction that you either think will happen with the team overall or maybe a specific player. What do you have, Gonzo?
My bold prediction, I predict that the Brooklyn Nets could get the 8th seed. I said, and the only reason I said that because I looked and I said, you got Boston, Toronto. I think you have Boston, Toronto, and the Knicks in the Atlantic. Then you got the Bulls, the Pistons, the Cavaliers, and the Indiana Pacers. I was kind of iffy when it came to Milwaukee, and I was kind of iffy when it came to Atlanta. Like, I just don't see Atlanta replenishing what they lost. Like, they lost T, they lost Horford. I mean, you got Dwight Howard, he has no post game, and then you're expecting Dennis Schroeder to take over at the point guard position, which I think he's a good backup, but I'm not sure if he's going to be a great starter or not. So I can't put them as a lock for AC. And I honestly believe that when you have a big guy who could score, and Brook Lopez is getting close to 8 rebounds a game. I mean, he's putting 21 points up, close to 21 points a game. I think that you can kind of build around that, and they could possibly sneak into an 8 seed. That's just my bold prediction.
Okay.
Okay. Keith?
Yeah, for me, I think it's that Bogdanovich takes his momentum from the Olympics and steps up and is a consistent 15 to 20 point per game scorer this season. I think he's going to be really, really good for the Nets all year. I think it's going to give them the player that they need in, you know, the well, on the wing. He's a good pairing with Hollis Jefferson because he can score the ball. Hollis Jefferson's probably never going to project to be a very good scorer, so that'd be my bold prediction. I think he builds on the Olympic experience and plays really well.
Now, do you see him, in your opinion, starting at small forward or taking that two guard spot and Hollis Jefferson takes the small forward spot?
Yeah, I think the system they want to use, they're going to kind of use those positions interchangeably. And
Okay.
it'll be Hollis Jefferson will get whoever the tougher defensive matchup is on the wing, and Bogdanovich will carry the load offensively. I don't think they're going to be as positionally defined there. I think they're pretty much going to lock into two bigs, one of those primarily being Lopez, a point guard, and then two wings that they'll just interchange and swap in and out.
Because I think that's their most depth is like Randy Foye, um, Levert. I mean, you have a lot of guys at the two guard spot, and then that could slide over because Joe Harris at 6'6" could slide over and play small forward too.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see how all of those guys mix in. Now Levert, he'll take a little while to get on the court, but the other guys definitely curious to see. Matt, what do you have for a bold prediction?
I'm gonna go with Brook Lopez. I don't think the Nets are gonna be very good. I don't know if they're gonna be the worst team in the league, but if they are, I wouldn't be shocked. But if they're just down there, and I could see Brook Lopez getting moved. That's my prediction. They're not gonna be very good, and they're gonna move him by the trade deadline, I think, and just go into tank mode, Philadelphia style. Trust the process.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can, I want to tag on to that real quick.
Go ahead.
So, what's going to happen with Lopez? Right, he has a player option for next year. He's going to opt out of it, assuming he's at least relatively healthy this season. And I'm not sure he's a guy the Nets necessarily want to dump a lot of money into. So, I can definitely see him being on the trade market, down the line. Teams are always looking for a big guy who can score mid-season. So I think you're on to something with that one, Matt. I think there's a good chance he might get moved.
And I think they could get decent value for him because he can get you 21 points. His rebounding is suspect and his defense, but everybody wants a big guy who can score. I mean, Enes Kanter. Kanter's a better rebounder.
Yep.
To me, Kanter is somebody that I don't know with that trade for LeVert. I don't know how he fits, and we'll get to OKC a little bit later. But definitely kind of threw me off there with getting LeVert from Denver and how they're stacked now at the power forward center spot. But with Brooklyn, I think my bold prediction is that by the trade deadline, Chris McCullough ends up in the starting lineup. I think that he'll slide in at the power forward spot. I think Scola he'll end up kind of taking that veteran mentorship role, which then leaves it between McCullough and Trevor Booker. And I think they're going to end up liking Trevor Booker in that second unit because some of the more younger guys are going to be on that unit, and he can kind of rebound and kind of play that more of a rugged style on that second unit. So I think McCullough can kind of etch himself into that starting power forward role. Even though he is only probably about 210, 215 pounds, I think in today's NBA, he has the speed and athleticism. He can get up and down the court, and they won't have to worry about necessarily his size down low. With Brooklyn, basically the expectations that are out there is that they're going to be a developmental team, not really one of the better teams. So, guys, give me just in terms of wins and losses, kind of where you see Brooklyn for this season. Matt, you go first.
See, I think they're gonna. I mean, I think they're gonna be the worst team in the league. I could be wrong, so I'm gonna say 21-41.
Okay, so you've got them
I think
21 wins. Okay.
bad.
Okay. Keith, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they'll be just a little bit better than that. I think maybe early in the season they might steal a few games from teams that are kind of in that coast mode early on, just because they do have some solid vets that can score the ball. So, but as the year goes on, they're not going to be very good. I'll say that they're going to be somewhere between 25 and 30 wins at the most.
Okay. What do you think, Gonzo?
I'm making a bold prediction. I think I'm going to go with like 38 and 44.
Ooh, okay. So you've got them right there. If they're not in the playoffs, they're right there because
I think they have enough. I think they have enough veterans. I think they have enough veterans to kind of, like you said, to kind of scrap out and get some wins. I mean, you got a big guy that's averaging 21 points a game, close to 8 rebounds. I mean, if Jeremy Lin turns out to be Jeremy Lin of last year in the starting role, and he's probably going to get more assists due to the fact he's playing with the big guy who's averaging 20, that's scoring 21 points a game. You got Scola, you got Foy. I just think that with those Grievous Vasquez, I think you got enough veterans to kind of to get some ground them out wins, man. I honestly believe in the East at that 8th spot. I just feel like it's anybody's game. You know, anybody can slide into that spot.
5 or 6 teams are all going to compete for that spot.
Yeah, exactly. I really believe they could compete for that spot.
okay. I've got them at the absolute most. I've got them at 26 wins. More realistically, I've got them about 22, 23, somewhere in that range. I just think that this year, until they can figure out, Matt, like you said, with Brook Lopez and just kind of, what they're going to do with him with the player option, as you mentioned, Keith, that that's going to kind of be a clear defining. If he's engaged, they're going to win more games. But if he's not as engaged and just kind of like, all right, I'm here, this is the team I'm on, then they're going to struggle because it begins and ends with Jeremy Lin and Brook Lopez for sure. Last question that I want to touch on, before we wrap up, in your opinion, what is if you're scouting Brooklyn, what is the biggest strength that you see, and what's the biggest weakness that you would capitalize on, basically playing them? Keith, I'm going to let you go first.
So I'll start with the weakness. I think they're going to be a terrible defensive team. Lopez isn't a very good defender. Lin's never been known as a very good defender. Bogdanovich is a questionable defender. Both of the power forwards. I mean, Booker's he's okay, but he's not that good. I think teams are going to pick and roll them to death, and it's going to be Hollis Jefferson left, on his own a lot to get out there and get after it. I think that is where Sean Kilpatrick, I know you mentioned him before. That's why I think he might get some floor time because he will get after it a little bit defensively more than the other guys. So that's going to be their single biggest weakness. On the flip side, I think they're going to be okay to score the ball. I think Jeremy Lin's obviously he's a proven scorer. He can get it done. Lopez, we've talked about that a lot. He's a 20-point per game guy. Bogdanovich, I think he's going to step up. And then they've got some other guys who can do good things offensively. Grievous Vasquez, for all the heat he's taken over the last couple of seasons, he was a pretty good player for a couple of years there, and he can do some solid things. Running the offense, getting guys in the right spot. And then Randy Foy's not a bad player, so I think they'll be able to score the ball. My one question there is how are they going to shoot? Because other than Bogdanovich, they don't have a big-time shooter, so they're going to have to manufacture it a little bit, play a little more old-school basketball, but that'll come with time. And then, that'll be where LeVert will be able to get himself on the court, and same with Isaiah Whitehead.
Okay. Matt, what do you think?
I totally agree with Keith on the defense. I think they're going to be just awful. Because you figure Bogdanovich, Jeremy Lin, Brooke Lopez. My guess is Trevor Booker will probably start at the beginning of the season, grind it out, do the dirty work. But I mean, he's not known as a great defender. He plays really hard. Definitely that's going to be probably their biggest weakness. I think offensively, I think they've got some shooting with LeVert, Bogdanovich, Harris. Jeremy Lin can get to the rim. He can play, and I think he'll be able to get those guys some shots. Lopez down low, he's going to demand some double teams. So I think guys like LeVert, Bogdanovich, Harris, they're going to thrive. So I actually think they're scoring the ball. I think they'll be fine. They're not going to be the best scoring team in the league, but middle of the pack. They won't be Philadelphia bad like last year. Philadelphia, not this year. Not this year. I had to throw that out there, Pete.
Okay, that's all right. I'm a Sixers fan, and we'll get to them in coming up within the next couple of weeks as we roll through these previews. So I definitely got to defend my Sixers, the most I can. Gonzo, what do you think?
I absolutely agree with Keith wholeheartedly. I think that the weakness will be the defense. I mean, the only really good, probably man-to-man defender that they have is Hollis Jefferson, and like I said, Kilpatrick. He's scrappy. He could probably stand out on defense on a few nights, but that's probably the weakness, though. The team defense would probably be the weakness. On offense, they have scoring. My question is the consistency of the outside shooting. Will they be able to knock down outside shots? Randy Foy can hit threes, but is he going to be consistent? Joe Harris can shoot. Let's see, Bogdanovich. I mean, he can shoot, but there's the consistency. Are they going to be able to hit those wide open shots that they might get on certain nights? Like I said, it's pretty much it. The consistency. Me personally, I think they have enough. They could score. A lot of these guys can get to the rim with ease. It's just the outside shooting for me, but that'll probably be their strength, though. The fact that they can put points on the board. Weakness, definitely defense.
Yeah, I mean, just piggybacking off what you guys said, defense. Last year they were ranked 24th in the league, and they've gotten a lot younger and a little bit less experienced, so to speak. Jeremy Lin's not locking anybody down, and we all know Brooke Lopez can't lock anybody down in the post. Basically, kind of going off of what you said, Gonzo, I think on offense, it's going to be about that consistency, because do we get Bogdanovich that was in the Olympics, where he's got, kind of that killer instinct, or do we get the Bogdanovich that showed up last year with 3 points on 1 for 7 shooting and just head wasn't in the game? Same goes for Jeremy Lin. Are we going to get the bad Jeremy Lin or the Jeremy Lin that's engaged and, oh man, I got a starting job just like I wanted to. I can run this team. I'm going to put the team on my back and kind of prepare this young team for what's to come. And then that's Kenny Atkinson's job there. It's like, Keith, like you said earlier, you're not in the development role where you can spend 30 minutes before the game working with Chris Humphreys in Atlanta, working on your jump shot and things like that I've seen him do personally. Now you've got to manage the whole team, and you've got to manage egos and just kind of be that lead voice. So definitely looking for that out of them. So we'll see. I think they'll, like Keith, like you touched on, they're going to be a sneaky team that gets some collective wins here and there. But it'll definitely be interesting to see. Well, that's going to wrap us up for the Brooklyn Nets preview show. I want to first thank you, Keith, for coming on. It was a pleasure. Of course, Gonzo, myself, and Matt are on each week, and I want to let everybody know that we are having another podcast tomorrow night. We have Justin Thomas of ESPN. He's actually a Charlotte Hornets blogger, and he does some reporting for ESPN. So he's going to come on and talk our Charlotte Hornets preview with us. That will be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow night. So everybody check us out. And, of course, per usual, you can check us out, each show out within 24 hours of it airing on iTunes, go to podcast Unquestionably Raw and check out all of our episodes there. So thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time.